Hello friends. For today's wellness pop-up, we're going to talk about how to straighten your thoughts spin. Have you ever thought about that your thoughts spin? All right, well, how we think really determines our health and our success. Shakespeare even said this years ago. He said, "There is nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so." You know, most importantly, how we think and how we adjust our thinking is what matters. We control our success by what's happening up here. So let's take an example. Let's pretend that you receive an email or a text. You know, maybe it's somebody at work that you're on a project with. Maybe it's a family member. And maybe while you're reading this message, it's just not sitting well. It's creating some emotions. Maybe they're saying some things that are incorrect or they're mean. Have you ever had a message like that? I have. I definitely have. And while I'm reading the message and while I'm reading the accusations against me, I start to get really defensive. And when I get defensive, I tend to, I grip my hands or my fists really tight. I clench my jaw. I can feel the temperature rising in my body, like the redness kind of coming into my face. I remember receiving an email like this one time at work, and the email was telling everybody that I was to blame for the project's failure. And I was horrified because I thought, seriously? You copied everybody and their brother on this email, the CEO, the clients, the future clients, the team members, everybody was on this email. And you're blaming me on the failure of it? Whew. Let's just say my thoughts were spinning in a negative cycle. My blood pressure was raised. My temperature was raised, my hands were shaking, and I was spinning in a cycle that I did not want to be in. So how do we get our brain to flip? How do we get our brain to think differently? We need to learn to straighten our spin, straighten the spin of our thoughts. And I have a tool that could help you with that. It's called the Think-Diff model. We can learn to use it to straighten the spin of our thoughts by pushing, being, and doing. Let's start with push. What does push really mean? Well, the fact is I received an email in my inbox, or I receive a text on my phone. That's really the activity that's happening. The emotions that I started to feel were high anxiety. I was also annoyed. I was defensive. I couldn't even really breathe. I can't even breathe right now just reenacting it because it just gets the blood flowing. Well, what were my thoughts? What was I thinking while I was reading this message? I was thinking for everything from, this is not accurate. Thanks for hanging me out to dry. Nobody appreciates me. Maybe I did do a little wrong, but come on, I'm not the only one. Everybody was copied on the email. What do they think of me now? I'm so embarrassed. I'm so embarrassed, but I can't tell anybody about my fear. I need to just make this right. Well, if we use the Think-Diff model and we begin to push through our thoughts, push through our thoughts. PUSH is an acronym. PUSH stands for pondering our options, unemotionalizing, slowing down, and humbling ourselves. When we truly push, we can get to a better place. Spoiler alert though, this doesn't happen in that order, and it doesn't happen quickly. Sometimes we need to spin in the push until truly all four of these are happening. Now, the Navy SEALs, they have a motto. that really is right in line with what we're talking about. Because if I'm going to ponder my options, now I need to figure out what my options are. Well, the Navy SEAL says that you've really only got 3 choices in life. You give up, you give in, or you give it all you've got. So what are my options regarding this email? Well, I could quit. I could just throw my hands down and say, I'm done. I'm done with this. I quit. I'm out of here. I could just stay as is. I could ignore the problems, just shut the email and pretend I never received it. Or I could fix what's broken. Well, what's the order? What's the priority of these options? Well, I think my number 1 might be fix what's broken. Number 2 would be quit, and number 3 would be stay as is. Number 3 is passive. I mean, to stay as is and ignore the problems, that's just passive, and I don't like passive activities. I like to do something and to try to figure something out. So I'd rather fix what's broken first, and if it's not fixable, well, okay, maybe then I'll quit. But bottom line, I just don't want to stay as is. So if we're going to fix what's broken, then we really need to ponder. We really need to figure out what does that even look like. Let's define what's broken. Well, what's really broken is communication. There's a lot of assumptions that were made in that message. And communication amongst the team. Email or text is not an appropriate mode of communication in my vote. So that's a problem right there. So the second step here really that I need to do, I'm defining what's broken. Now really, I need to choose one piece to focus on. What would it look like if that one piece were fixed? So what would it look like if our team communication were fixed? Well, I can't do anything about the email that was just sent, but I can do something about my response. So if our communication were fixed, I would choose to approach the sender of that email and facilitate a conversation to iron out the misunderstandings. I don't want to reply all. Even I do want to do that, but I don't. I know that will not fix the communication. So instead of replying all, I need to just approach the person one-on-one. I need to be courageous and have a conversation. I also need to set my boundaries a little bit, right? Well, what are my boundaries? Well, for one, I need to take ownership for what I did do wrong, because we all have something to do wrong that we did wrong, and I definitely have my faults in the project. I also need to stay calm. One of my personal boundaries is that I don't match emotion with emotion. I don't get all worked up and come at them, because they're gonna come back at me. So stay calm, take breaths. And also I wanna ask questions. Maybe there's something I don't understand. Maybe there was a typo. Maybe they did not intend to blame me, and maybe there were some typos in the email and they're unaware of it. So I need to ask questions. Well, what if we don't figure out this communication problem? What if I fall back into some broken habits like emotional reactions? Then we're going to continue in that team dysfunction. Well, it's really tough to fix something the first go around, so I think it's safe to say we might fall back into some dysfunction. But what do I want to do? I want to fix what's broken. I want to continue to push. I said earlier that pushing, sometimes we just spin in the push. And also it doesn't happen in this order. P-U-S-H. The reason it's push is because that's an English word, so it's easy for us to remember. But the reality is my spin right here sounds more like sup. What I mean by that is usually I have to slow down first, and then I have to unemotionalize. That takes a long time. And then I finally can ponder my options, and then I might humble myself. Actually, I have to humble myself. When I am unemotionalizing, there are more emotions that tend to happen, like tears. Maybe they're tears of fear. Maybe they're tears of disappointment. tears of honesty, tears of humility. That's the emotions that I need, because that is slowing me down. That's humbling me as well. You know, slowing down, my goodness, I need to remind myself just to take deep breaths, just to breathe and slow down. And once I do that, I can humble myself. Now is when you know that your thoughts have completed the push. This is when you know you're coming out of the spin, is when you are humbling yourself. You can admit your wrongs. You can admit what you need to do to go forward. Once you've completed the push, the next step is what's going to straighten your spin. The next step is to be, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be as a worker on this project? Well, I want to be a high road leader. I want to be calm. I want to assume the best. I want to have strong communication skills. Okay. If that's who I want to be, then the answer to the question of what do you need to do next, well, that should be really easy. If I want to be calm, if I want to assume the best, if I want to be a strong leader, then the next thing I need to do is to go to the office of the sender and facilitate a conversation. If I would not have worked through the push, be, do model, if I would have reacted as soon as the email came in, if I would have done what was probably the wrong thing to do, I would have probably replied all and gave them a piece of my mind. What would have been my results? My results might be that I am leaving the company because they don't want me on the team anymore. Or at least I lose my credibility, and I don't want that either. You know, with the Think Diff model, it's not going to happen in the moment, okay? You're not going to push, be, do in the moment. You got to give yourself space. You got to back away from the situation. There's no reason to say I had to reply all in that moment. Thankfully, I didn't. When it happened to me, thankfully, I didn't reply all. But sometimes we just get in the rush and we just want to fix it now. This is a time we step away. We use the tools to push, be, and do, and then step back into the situation. So what thinking systems can you practice to straighten your spin? How can you use the Think Diff model to help you work through whatever challenge is in front of you? How can you take your negative spinning thoughts and straighten it into more of an accurate thought? Keep this model handy, keep it in front of you, use it as a reminder, and the more you do use it, the more of a habit it's going to become, and the more you're going to like the results that you get. Have fun with this tool.